welcome back. Episode 3, would you believe? I'm Dan.
And I'm Ben.
We're the two Ps in our drop pod hurtling towards yet another planetary engagement, where I'm going to bring the righteous word of chaos, and Ben's going to cry about the fact his emperor is dead. So that sets up the tone for tonight. We're going to start, as usual, with our On the Hobby desk today. Ben's been beavering away on his Space Wolves. He's got Goblins going on as well. We've both played a number of games. And, of course, I'm still sticking skulls to anything that I think needs one, which is a lot of stuff. Then into the Galaxy of War. We've heard now we're getting codexes, so Ben and I are quite excited about that. A little bit about Dreadnoughts as well, that's been knocking around. Hopefully you've all seen those. And the Siege of Conor, or Conor, or whatever it is. The attack on Ultramarine land. So we're going to talk a bit about that. Into the Mortal Realms then. Ben's started building lists now with all his goblins. Want to have a chat about that, how that works in Age of Sigmar.
Because it feels really complicated.
Yes.
And I need a hand.
Ben's given me a big long list of questions today, and I said, right, well, we'll talk about that in the podcast. And then I want to talk a bit about Path to Glory, which has gone up on pre-order today, I think yesterday, so that's quite exciting. And then finally Into the Wild. So Ben's had a chance to play a game called Outlander, which is written by a guy at his local gaming club, so he's going to chat a bit about that. And I'm sure I can find something to chat about by then. So thank you very much for joining us. Sit back, relax, of course a cup of tea, and we'll get into it, guys. Thank you.
Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to talk about what's on our hobby desks first, which for me has been ploughing on with my Tale of Many Gamers Space Wolves collection. Dan has been beavering away at his endless heresy, strapping skulls and all sorts of crap onto worthy Imperial vehicles and turning them into heathen machines. I think it's been a pretty good fortnight for hobby for me, Dan.
I agree, mate. I was thinking earlier today, I was like, oh goodness, I've not really finished anything. I haven't really got anything. And then I started thinking about what I've done in the last couple of weeks. 3 games of 40k, travelled all the way to Bodmin to lay waste to Space Wolves. Which did fail, but yeah, well, yeah, I don't. We won't talk about that game for too long. I think we'll just done a whole load of plastic cards, stuck multiple bits of plastic card to my fingers, my face. So it's been a good couple of weeks, to be honest. So do you want to let people know what mutants you finished painting this week?
Mutant? Oh, do you know, I've just had to deal with Alexander banging on about heresy and Space Wolves and whatnot. I don't have to deal with you tonight, do I? I can't deal with too much. I'll just rage out.
So prod the bear.
So yeah, I finished my blood calls. Really chuffed with those. Actually tried some new things with those, which we spoke about the colour scheme I used on their armour, which I'm really sorry, guys. I meant to put up, but by the time I come round to doing it, I thought what would actually be better is for me to sit down and do a photographs of stage by stage, and I will get that done and put that up. But what I did do was use the weathering powders a bit more and did some battle damage. I've always gone for quite natural tones in my painting. Don't like bright colours too much. But I've never really gone for battle damage before. I've gone and kept things quite clean. But I've done a lot of that on these blood claws, and I really like them. I really like the way it turned out. Got a lot of my inspiration from second edition pictures. I found that the book that I was picking up to look at colour schemes was actually the second edition Space Wolf Codex more than anything. So the black and yellow tooth marks on the chainswords and things like that. They're really.
I think you've done a nice way of modernising those schemes, really. So you using the older markings, but then using the newer techniques, such as weathering, to make them fit in the more modern painting styles. Now, I really like it.
Because second edition was all about that perfectly clean, bright colours, loads and loads of feathering. Whereas now it's quite a lot about the whole impression of the model, and those little bits of battle damage and realism. Not so much maybe with heavy metal, which is still about that perfectly clean look in a lot of ways. But I think sort of what people are painting generally seems to be more of the realistic style. And I think
definitely. And you see a lot of that in Heresy. What I really like about your guys is you've not lost there's still you can still see the skill, I suppose, about the brushwork. So you've not just gone crazy and weathered them up like mad. My salamanders are more of I've accidentally painted that bit of leg in gold. I'll just slap on some weathering powder. Right, done.
But there is an element of that actually with weathering. It can use it to cover a whole number of sins. And with those guys, like I wrote in my post online, I sprayed them when it was stinking hot, and I was watching the spray dry before it got to the model. And I was gutted, really, because a lot of it was quite a powdery texture. I was managed to brush a lot of it back, but there were still some places where I just couldn't. And I was able to... You get
on really well with sprays, don't you, Ben?
I really don't. Don't get me started on Skull White. But what I was able to do was cover that up with stuff, which was quite useful. And I finished off my Wolf Priest, a model which I really, really love. GameStay model from 2000 and something, 2002. It wasn't a GameStay I managed to get to, but that 13th Company release was...
you popped him up on the Facebook page, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
And I when I came down, I saw you were re-sculpting some of it. Yeah,
it was just because that model, I've still got one in the packet, which I only found today when I was searching for some goblins. Didn't realise I had it. But that one I got from eBay. He was a bit buggered up, really. Needed some love. But I really enjoy bringing old, damaged models back to life. That is something I really find quite a lot of joy out of, actually, because I think... models discarded in the bin. It feels a little bit like Toy Story. I can't deal with it. So I think I'm really happy to sort of sit down for more time than it should do and bring the model back to life. Currently ploughing on with some goblins. 52 of the little shits. Speed.
The best thing is as well, man, is when you're just make sure you bring your shovel for taking them off.
Well, if I magnetise the bases, I might just bring a big magnet.
Yeah, just suck them all up.
So I'm very close to finishing those. But that was quite good because I haven't really speed painted since, or massively unit painted since I left Games Workshop. And as a result, I think you tend to think, I'm going to do a really good job on all of my models. But I've got so many of them.
So how many? What are you doing? One big batch of 52?
Yeah, 52.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Have fun with that.
Well, like I said, I've nearly done. It didn't take very long, actually. In some ways, did in others more than I expected. But I think learning to speed paint, learning to batch paint massive groups of just tabletop ready, what I call Games Workshop staff member standard. So. Competently painted large groups of units that are good enough to put in the cabinet, but definitely good enough to have out on the intro tables. I think that's a skill that I think is worth learning and worth being happy to accept. Because I think when you've been doing the hobby for a long time and you get a bit better at painting, you kind of feel like you want to spend hours on every model, and you just can't do it. It's just not possible. It really isn't. So I really, really love Chappie's videos on Warhammer TV, where he shows
Duncan's videos,
really easy, accessible, fast techniques that just don't take hours to do. Really love those.
Yeah, so guys that in my gaming circle in Bristol will know what's coming next, because I often wax lyrical about this. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head when you said, you know, you've got to learn to accept or be happy with a certain level if one of your desires is to have a lot of painted figures, and you haven't got the money to pay somebody to paint them to an incredibly high standard, and you don't just paint all day. There has to come that point where you go, yeah, actually that's good enough. Because otherwise, definitely, like you say, the chances of getting them done are low. And I had to go through that because what I found is I was just repainting the same guy and just getting annoyed. And I'd be all excited about a project. Oh yeah, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it this way. And then, you know, get so frustrated. And actually, for me, having a painted army on the table which is coherent, so using basing schemes to bring it together, even simple things like making objective markers and wound markers to bring it together, that is more important. And you know, it's different for different people, but some people are into the hobby. You know, you see the stuff with Gold Demon, and that's incredible. And that's the real joy for painting. And actually, you know, I know some guys who paint to that level and have a painted army. But
do they paint
not
to that level across the whole army? I mean, the Golden Demon standard stuff, it takes them weeks sometimes to paint some of those models. I mean, literally weeks. You can't do that with a Goblin army unless you're deranged, frankly.
Yeah, well, I'm looking for Golden Demon standard when I see those goblins, Ben. So you better, you know, crack on, really.
Mate, Devlin Mud is your friend.
Excuses.
Oh no, Devlin Mud.
Devlin Mud? What's Devlin Mud?
A little bit of a backtrack into the past then. Agrax Earthshade is your friend.
Did Devlin Mud get nominated for Staff Member of the Year? I'm sure it did.
It should have done. I mean, it was revolutionary.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So you don't have to be good. Just paint something on the model and then stick it on Devlin Mud.
Devlin Mud. Woo!
And if you've got a pair of pliers and you can dip the model in, all the better.
Well, absolutely. Get a bucket of it.
So, Zinch has been playing a hand in your tale of many gamers, Dan, really, and convincing you to do other things.
Yeah. So early on in our first episode, we talked about Tale of Many Games, didn't we? And you were doing Space Wolves. So, as usual, I got onto my high horse of mocking and started throwing around all the challenges and insults. And I'm going to do Zinch and show you Wolves what to do. So, episode 3, I haven't built or painted a single Zinch model yet. I have bought one. I bought Araman. I took Joshua, who's, for those that aren't aware, my 11-month-old son. We went into Games Workshop in Bristol in the centre, and he forced me to buy Araman
with pliers and pins and fire.
Yeah, absolutely. So I bought Araman. He's not yet out of the wrapping. He came back home, got put on the side, and I promptly cracked on with the most ridiculously over-the-top Chaos Land Raider project.
I don't know. Chaos aren't over the top. I don't know what you mean. There's nothing
mate, I'm looking at it at the moment, and
there's
chains coming out of everywhere. I've got banding half done. I've got skulls that are on fire. It's just mental.
But that chain looks so good.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because I've never done it before, and I saw it on a friend of mine, Ben's, another Ben, Black Templar. He's doing some Primaris Black Templars, and he's done the chains, with some really micro chain, and it looked really cool. And when I came to the Land Raider, I was thinking, right, well, I'd quite like a possessed Land Raider, but I don't really want like a wibbly tentacle sticking out of the top, because that's just freaking
That's
weird.
Not very Khorne, is it?
Well, no, I think maybe if it was holding a chain axe, it'd be Khorne, but I think that kind of mutated flesh look is more Nurgly, personally. But that's just a personal preference. So I decided, right, well, I'm going to have a demon bound within this thing, so let's get some chains on. So I started with the engine block, which I've put some pictures up from. Then I thought, ooh, what shall I do for this machine spirit? So now there's chains in the little machine spirit opening. There are chains coming out of that, which are going to be attached to the hull to have that kind of chained machine spirit. Is the kind of thing I'm going for. And there's some more stuff on the top now with chains coming out of it. And I was explaining to Harriet earlier that there's a beast inside that has to be chained down to stop it escaping and causing havoc. And she was like, oh, yeah, okay.
How are you going to paint the chains?
What do you mean? What colour?
Well, no, just technically, how are you going to paint them? Because they move and...
no, so that's that. What I've done, the links, they're very tight. They're quite taut. In as much as, so they come out, they're affixed in two places and they're quite tight between that, so the movement is limited. And then little bits of spots of super glue to hold them together even more. And then just spray them up and paint them and go from there.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because when the chain's moving around, that could be a right pain in the ass to paint.
No, I'm not having. Yeah, they're not. They're tight because the beast inside's trying to get out. But I will put some. I am going to put some.
That wasn't a euphemism.
No. That didn't even cross my mind. No, that was a euphemism. What's wrong with you? You crazy man. So I will put some pictures up of what I've been doing so far, and as it comes together, because I've also been doing a bit more to some bloodletters. So Ben and I, in one of our, I think possibly in the intro, talked about how do we fit hobby into family life, and one of the things I've done is I've been out and bought the Games Workshop project box, and that lives in my kitchen with some, at the moment, bloodletters in it and the paints for the next section I'm on. So Harriet was merrily making some cakes recently, and I sat at the table and painted bloodletters, and we just chatted away, and it was really good because I was getting some hobby done, we were spending some time together. So yeah, I really recommend that. Really good.
Yeah, because I think, and it's something I did want to talk about actually. Hobbying can quite easily become a bit of a hermit hobby, and a bit of a stationary, static hobby, and I think that can be really damaging actually, because you can disappear into a room for an hour and a half and think it's 20 minutes, and then you're late to bed or whatever. But sitting down, is actually sitting down for the periods of time that we do when we're painting can be really, I think it's really damaging. And maybe I'm on a medical kind of go here rather than a hobby go, but sitting down is worse for you than eating a pizza or something. It's really unhealthy, and I think one of the things that's new to my hobby desk actually is worth keeping it on topic is a stop clock, Dan. That's 20-minute long stop clock, and every 20 minutes I get up and do something. So I make sure I'm standing up and moving, because otherwise you can end up sitting down on your ass for hours.
So every 20 minutes you get up and you go and eat a pizza while stood up.
Or a tub of Ben and Jerry's or something.
Or a tub of Ben and Jerry's, yeah.
It's hard work getting to the fridge. But no, seriously, getting up, doing something, moving around a bit, going and making a cup of tea for the missus, that kind of stuff is the the sort of thing that I think would be really keeps you moving rather than sort of sat doing nothing, or doing something but being physically inactive.
Keeps the peace as well.
It does keep the peace, and actually, you got part of this whole kind of pod is to talk about being parents, being adults, and hobbying, and I think being healthy is important, and because I want to be doing this hobby for a long time. You
need to get all them models painted.
I do. Yeah, I don't want to be conking out when I'm 45 because I've been sat stationary for 6 hours a night.
No.
So that's new to my hobby desk. Maybe a bit off topic. People might find it interesting if they're interested, because my profession during the day is medical. So if you're interested, I can throw you links about that kind of stuff. But otherwise, we'll just leave that where it is. So I think we ought to talk about how how 40k is getting on now, Dan, because we've kind of gone on a bit.
Well, yeah, we haven't spoken about the games. Okay, well we've mentioned the one that we had when I came to you, so we don't need to talk about that anymore. So that's great. We'll talk about the other games when we go into the 40k section. So guys, thanks for joining us for the Hobby Desk. Especially want to just throw it in there. Thank you very much. We've had some pictures popping up on the Facebook. So Tom's been beavering away on a couple of Space Marine bits and pieces, which is great to see. Really nice to see comments from Alexander, Alistair on there as well. Just really want to say thank you very much. John as well has thrown up a comment. So interacting with the Facebook is great. Ben and I spend quite a bit of time scrolling up and down, getting excited, posting things, and it's really nice to see people interacting. So thank you very much for that. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
I know Ben does. We talk about it most days, to be honest, so thank you.
And on that note, thanks to the guys for joining up for Tale of Many Gamers. And the next month is once more a single model and a unit. So Dan is actually going to paint something for his Tale of Many Gamers.
So now I'm 2 single models and 2 units behind.
Yep, pretty much.
Oh dearie dear. Thanks, Corn. Thanks. Right, anyway, moving on. So, right, we're going to go into the Galaxy of War, guys. Thanks very much for listening to the Hobby Desk section. And we will catch you on the flip side. Welcome back, guys. The drop pod hurtles on, getting closer and closer to the ground, and we're on to the Galaxy of War. So talking about 40k and everything set in the far and distant future. So Ben, we've played some games, we've got excited about new codexes, we've got excited about dreadnoughts, and we've got excited about Connor. So let's start with games.
And this sparkly new Primaris characters.
And them.
Yeah. So,
and them.
So games. So which one should we talk about first? Should we talk about the one where you won and defeated the angels, or the one where you lost and got whooped by the wolves?
Pardon?
Oh, I can outline them again for you. Would you like to talk about the ones where you beat the angels, or the one where you got whooped by the wolves?
Well, I suppose because I like you, I'm going to let you talk about the one where I drove across counties to meet with you, and you had the audacity to beat me with a sleigh riding Santa knockoff.
Yeah, but mate, didn't he just kick the shit?
Mate, it was ridiculous. He was like, right, I'm just going to pop over. Oh, my days, I've killed you all.
It was a good job he did, because the blood claws were practically inhaled, and that was just about it before they died.
Who needs to hit on a 2+ and then be allowed to re-roll it? I mean, come on.
Yeah, well, we could talk about Khan the Betrayer and how ridiculous... Oh, no, because he died too. Sorry.
He didn't. He charged it. I was so excited about Khan, and I was even like slipping into that kind of, yeah, I'm going to kill you. And I caused 4 wounds on your Terminators, and you promptly picked up the dice and rolled 4 5+ invulnerable saves.
Yes.
And I then went and wept in the corner.
Yeah, but the Terminators aren't quite as tough as they used to be, I don't think.
What do you mean?
No,
They've
I don't
got
think
2
they are.
wounds now.
I suppose.
I suppose
it's
because of the armour modifiers thing.
Yeah. Well, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
You can't often
well, if
falling
it didn't
back
make
on
a
that
difference, they'd have
invulnerable
just kept with 7th, wouldn't they? That's the
yeah,
point.
I know, but they don't feel as tough. Well, they're not as tough because the army modifier quite often forces them to go onto their invulnerable. So
yeah, but then I suppose they have got 2 wounds. So
yes, yeah.
So
I mean, that was a great game, and another champion for battle mats again. Turned my kitchen into a frosty ice plain of Fenris, which was fantastic. And filled my little dude full of wonder. He was talking about it for days afterwards, Dan.
Yeah, he had. Yeah, he really enjoyed it, didn't he?
Yeah.
Enjoyed seeing that. That was good. Yeah, so it was a really good game. Nice to come down and play. I mean, we haven't played a game for a long time, have we?
No,
So
we haven't. No.
That was really good to do.
The last time was that City Fight game where we were playing your Eldar. Now that had some great cinematic moments. Dreadnought smashing through walls to take out squads of Dire Avengers, all sorts of stuff going on in there.
Mm.
Do you remember I played with a largely drop pod army, which I love doing.
Well, that's you're a big Space Marine fan. Space Marines have to have drop pods.
They do. You can't have a Space Marine army without drop pods.
Mm.
So honestly, now we've covered the awesomeness of my Space Wolves, or should I say, if we're being fair, the fluke of my Space Wolves. But let's move on to your games against Blood Angels, because they went quite well.
So I've played Blood Angels since we last recorded, and I've also played Eldar as well. So my Eldar, I played Ben Chambers had Eldar, his first game of 8th, and Tom had his Blood Angels, and that was our second game we played this time round. So played some missions, tried out Maelstrom missions, which I particularly enjoy. So that's the ones where you're drawing the cards each turn to see what you've got to do. And against Ben, you mentioned fluke. You got nothing, my friend. You got nothing. So turn 5, random game length. I had a single rhino left on 1 wound, but I was ahead on victory points, and the game ended, and I won.
I think it's worth going over why we're talking about the games, because actually, as much as it's fun to go over games, these are our first experiences of 8th edition, and we're really enjoying it, Dan. I think everyone I'm speaking to is really, really enjoying it. So it's all positive, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm loving the flow. It flows really, really nicely.
Yeah.
I really like. I thought I wouldn't like the way the vehicles work, because I quite like tanks and I like the idea of fire arcs, etc., etc. But I've actually found it really enjoyable. And my goodness, Lamb Raiders are tough. Playing Tom's Blood Angels, he had a Lamb Raider for the second time, and it's so tough. And a big reason why I've ended up building one for my army, really, because I just love it. I love the idea of this thing that you just blow in chunks out of it and it just doesn't care. It just keeps rolling forward.
It should be tough, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
It should be tough.
It's a Lamb Raider.
Well, it's interesting you should talk about tanks, because Mike from Games Workshop Plymouth, not the manager, he plays Imperial Guard, and he's got a great tank army that lives in the window cabinet if you fancy popping on by and taking a look. And he was saying that actually now he gets to use it more, because he's always been reluctant to play it in the past, because he played a whole tank army. And if people weren't equipped to take on a tank army, it was just a really crap game. But now, everything can hurt a tank. So they still play and feel like tanks. But you can play anybody and not have to worry about whether they've got enough Devastators or heavy weapons or las cannons or what have you. People can just think about it in a different way. And I think that's quite an interesting way of looking at it. And because in some ways,
if it lets him use his toy soldiers more, then it's a good thing, isn't it?
I think so, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So I've actually written in my notes negatives about 8th Ed, and the only thing I came up with was the fact that at the moment, and it is just at the moment, we're operating completely out of the indexes. So there's an element of variety that I really enjoyed before. I used to play Khorne Demonkin, but it's missing. Of course, now we've heard that we're going to have, is it 10 codexes by Christmas?
Yeah, 10 codexes, I think, yeah. Well, certainly 4 are coming out in the next couple of months. It's an interesting choice of the first ones, really. So, Grey Knights. Grey Knights is an interesting choice for your first run, especially as they've not made any hints about releasing any models for them. But and then the Space Marine Codex with a Primaris Marine on the front, which is a big indicator that they're not going to do a separate Primaris Codex. Chaos Space Marines and Death Guard. So I think that's quite a nice little starting point. It's nice to
Yeah,
see
it
Death.
is. It's a really nice bit of a mix, isn't it, to start with?
Yeah, and it's nice to see Death Guard with their own codex, because they should be totally different, and it would be nice to see the 4 Chaos sort of gods getting their own index books, as long as they're not ridiculously expensive, because you don't want to be spending 20 quid each on them, really, do you? But even then, if you want to go for a core Death Guard army with nothing else, it's going to be awesome. And have you seen the Death Guard tank, Dan?
Yeah, so I was looking at pictures of the Chaos tank just now, actually, on Facebook. Some pictures have popped up. I think it's in that new magazine, isn't it, that's come out? The introduction to 40k, the £5 one, like the Age of Sigmar one.
Oh yes, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I do too. I'm tempted. I think was it? Were we talking about flyering in an earlier episode? I'm sure we mentioned it.
Yes,
yeah. So
you were talking about handing out free models.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, I love the idea of that magazine. That will be going to a few people. I've already thought of a few people who that's going to that haven't played in a while, or have showed an interest but not made the jump. So I'm probably going to pop down and pick up a few copies of that.
Recruiting agency.
Yeah, do my bit.
I think we should start sending some of the Age of Sigma ones to Alexander.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Maybe one every 6 months.
No, one every 6 weeks.
One, yeah, one, okay.
One per podcast.
yeah, just send one each time. That's a good idea. So anyway, the tank. Yes, I've seen the tank.
What do you think? I mean, it's an interesting model.
It's different. I don't think... It's very different.
It's definitely different.
Yeah, which is cool. Yet again, surprisingly, actually, Games Workshop haven't released one of their cool pictures of it on the community site yet.
No. Even
though it's been doing the rounds on the rumour mill for a little while. Well, it's not even a rumour mill, is it? Really, it's coming. We just don't know when. So just reserve judgment really until I see it in the flesh. It looks quite smooth. Like there's quite big empty plates of armour.
Yeah, but that's such an open season for weathering and rust and all that sick crap that comes out of Nurgle. I think it gives a real free kind of clean slate to modelers to really go nuts with it.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at it. I think, whilst you would never doubt the technical skill of the Heavy Metal team, they really are incredible.
Yeah.
Sometimes that clean style, I don't think suits the miniatures as much. So, and this tank is a perfect example where I think with some weathering and rust work, it would look cracking. Really, really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree.
Sorry, I've got to leap back and talk a bit more about codexes, because I have this sort of nervous twitch at the moment where I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what's in the Chaos Space Marine one, because we've had Death Guard announced.
Of course, it's the Chaos Space Marine one.
Yeah. Only because I want to know how to facilitate people playing Chaos.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on to important things. So we know we're getting Death Guard.
Yes,
we know that. That's excellent. A+. I used to play Khorne Demonkin, and I'm part of a Khorne Demonkin group. And I think one of the big questions is, are we going to see...
That's a Facebook group, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah. Okay. Not a group of Khorne Demon worshippers.
You've got to check these things and you never know.
It's just one of those social groups in Bristol,
Yeah, red body paint running through the streets with axes.
Oh my goodness me! Nobody needs to see that. It would look more like a flipping Red Nose Day collection of me running through the streets with red body paint on. Deary me. Right. Anyway, quick, move on. So basically, I'm hoping we'll see at least a World Eaters one.
Yes.
Just because I really like the Blood Tithe. I really liked that mechanic. I love the idea of collecting up little piles of skulls. I made a little tracker for it, and they've still got it in the Blades of Khorne for Age of Sigmar. But it'd be nice to see it back in 40k. But I don't know. I've enjoyed Ape so much. I'm confident. I will definitely be getting the. I think it's the 27th of July. The Space Marine Codex comes out, or it or goes on as pre-order. I'm not sure which, but I'll certainly be getting that. Just because you just got to own the Space Marine. Well, I've got a Space Marine army. That's one reason.
Yeah. And I'd like to see how they're going to split these up, because they've talked about subgroups within the Codex, rule subgroups. So in Chaos, they've talked about the legions, which is interesting because they haven't talked about the gods. They've talked about the legions, which is means that you're probably going to get some special rules for things like Iron Warriors and the kind of undivided legions. So I do think you're going to see a Thousand Suns, World Eaters, and hopefully, because they are massively underdone, Emperor's Children. I hate the Emperor's Children. They just need to be face pounded until they're pancakes, but they don't get enough love when it comes to models and rules.
The Emperor's Children will never get enough love.
Yes, that's very true.
They will never feel that they have had enough love.
They're an army I love to hate. I really do. And I think things like the Noise Marines, for me, were a pivotal part of early Chaos Space Marines. There's Chaos Space Marines with the big electric guitars, and then they moved on to the sonic things, and they just seem to have been left at the side a little bit. And I'd quite like to see that, because we know that they're going to do Tzeentch and hopefully Khorne with some new Khorne Berserkers, because those models could really do with a bit of attention, if we're being honest. But Slaanesh, they're the ones who need it big time, in my humble opinion.
See, I'm excited by the idea of like an Iron Warriors Codex, because it'd be really nice to see them explore what does demonic look like when it's not, one of the obvious ones. So Masters of Siege Warfare, so demonic siege engines, demonic cannons. There's some really exciting stuff there.
They don't accept demonic mutation. They will cut their limbs off rather than become mutated.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure that they bind demons into.
They do, yeah. They bind them into other things, so they're a completely different feel. They're chaos without the mutation.
Chaos without the wibbly bits.
Yes. Chaos without the tentacles coming out your toes.
Absolutely.
Or armpits.
So Dreadnoughts. I want to talk about Dreadnoughts, because that big Dreadnought is freaking amazing. And it's so funny. When we first saw it at Warhammer Fest, and the first picture, it had a big plasma cannon.
Yes.
And the next day, we didn't go to Warhammer Fest, did we? We went up to Warhammer World. But a picture popped up, and they'd actually got it out, and it had the rotary cannon on it. Well, it will obviously come as a massive surprise to people. I got incredibly excited. I just nearly flipped out. I think we were sat in Bugman's, and it's just like, oh my goodness, there's a friggin' rotary cannon, and it's so cool. So yeah, I'm very excited by that model. It represents a real threat to the continuation of my chaotic fascination, because I won't chaosify it, but I want to get, I need one. And my friend Tom is threatening to buy 3, and I'm like, no, you can't buy 3, because then I'll have to have at least 1, and it'll need to be Ultramarines, and you can't just have a Dreadnought, can you? That would be ridiculous. So then you have to have an army, and you can't just have an army, you need a Crusade force to liberate Konor, or wherever it's called. So, yeah. I don't know what else to say. I'm just, it's so good.
I like it. I really do.
It looks so posable as well, like the legs. So I can have it like stand it like advancing up onto stuff. And
I hope that it is as posable as it looks.
Yeah, well, it's plastic. It will be.
But not everyone likes it.
Not everyone has any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Not everyone likes it. I mean, I've heard Orkanaut being thrown around by one person in particular who knows who he is.
We're supposedly in a drop pod. Let's redirect it towards that person's house. Because that's unbelievable.
Yeah. I think I think it's going to be a model for me that's really going to come into its own when you've got the kit in your hand.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Because the thing is, right, so you can't get the kind of gravitas of the miniature in a picture.
No, it's freaking massive as well.
Yeah, I know. So when we first saw it, it was like in a picture with no points of reference, and then gradually we've seen points of reference. We're like, oh my bloody days, it is huge. But that's nothing compared to when it's on the table. And finally, I mean, for crying out loud, we're talking about, this guy has nearly died fighting the enemies of the Emperor. So he's a badass anyway. He's holding on to life, and then they've been like, right, let's pop you in here. Dreadnoughts are flipping amazing, smashing through walls, blowing people up. Oh my goodness! I'm telling you now, Chaos Space Marine. They have like Space Marine armor in the backpack. It has like the waste thing, doesn't it? So it deals with all the waste. Yeah. It just wouldn't cut it if one of them come through a wall, would it? That would be it. It would be coming out of the seams of the armour, mate. Because that is flipping insane. And I just love the idea. It's a dreadnought that actually will operate like a dreadnought. And we started to see some of its rules. Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
And another great... To go away from the Redemptor just a moment before Dan has a aneurysm.
Calm down. I got to calm down. I get a drink.
Is the Contemptor has now been sort of confirmed as a 40k thing, a real sort of firmly established 40k thing, not just a 30k thing. Perhaps to sell more models if you're being a little bit,
it's always cynical. To sell more models.
But
I don't understand why that's a bad thing. Let's not go down this route because I'm going to flip out.
It's not a bad thing, but it's more important that actually, because for me, the Contemptor is the best. It just looks awesome. And it's so poseable and so human. I love it.
It is lovely.
Very happy to see that.
The Leviathan's very nice, mind.
Yes.
Oh, they're all very nice.
So there's lots to look forward to for 40k.
What about, hang on, Siege of Conor? How are you pronouncing this?
Conor? Sounds about right. That's how I've been saying it in my head.
Why do they have to pick one with a difficult to pronounce name?
Yeah, but I've always had trouble pronouncing some of these words.
Well, yes. Same here, but that's more to do with my accent. So, worldwide campaign. I don't think we've seen a worldwide campaign for quite a while, have we? Oh, no, well, there was one. There was the Age of Sigmar one last year, sorry. There was the Realm of Life one. But for 40k, certainly we haven't.
Well, it's because they were overdone. They were really, really overdone. I mean, there was such success with the End Times, with Archaon and that blacksmith dude who became
Bolton.
That's the badger, yeah. That was a really, really popular one, and then they just started to do them every year, and people got bored. I mean, the Siege of Medusa was just garbage. It just wasn't good at all.
No. Interesting though, wasn't that when Vostroyans came out? They were nice models.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that it wasn't supported. It just, I don't know, just no one wanted to play it. It didn't generate that excitement that the End Times wanted. And hopefully this one will, because I'm quite excited to get stuck in, and I'm going to be logging my games. And
I'll be logging the ones that I win.
Of course.
I'll be looking forward to logging my games as well.
Your opponent should be logging the other ones, the ones that you lose. So anyone who's listening
Not
to
if
this,
I break their fingers.
Because Kona cannot fall. It must stand. It has to stand. Because when Nurgle takes a planet, it just turns into the Bog of Eternal Stench.
Oh, I don't know. I'm so torn. I'm an Ultramarine, but chaos. Oh.
We need to send you off for reprogramming is what we need to do.
Yeah.
We'll just sit you on top of the Rhino
It's
tank.
It's okay. The Redemptor Dreadnought kit will come out, and that'll be it. I'll be back.
So I think we ought to shuffle over to the Mortal Realms now, Dan.
Into the Mortal Realms. I see a realm gate on the horizon, sir. Let's make for it.
Yep, definitely.
So thanks for listening, guys. To the Galaxy of War. We are going to get something to drink. I'm going to lower my heart rate a little bit, just try and calm down ever so slightly. So thanks very much. Join us soon.
So welcome back, guys. We're taking a stride into the mortal realms to talk about some Age of Sigmar, which is probably the thing that I've been focusing on the most the last couple of weeks. So I thought I'd start with a quote, Dan, because one of my friends, Alexander, this is for you, buddy, is really not got the Age of Sigmar bug. And he's described Age of Sigmar as a pure fantasy sandbox where you can make up anything if it tickles your fancy. And here's this quote for it. I'm a precious unicorn snow fairy, and my army of Glitterskaven are allied with elf dwarves who fly on clouds of pure friendship, which I that cracked me up.
If it sells miniatures.
So I can totally see his point, and he's trying to convince me to create an army of Glitter Goblin. But if anyone out there really fancies doing an army of Glitterskaven, I think the window of opportunity is now. Because the Glitterskaven could be, frankly, hilarious.
Well, there's a role play now for My Little Pony, isn't there? So.
Oh no, that is not true.
Yeah, it is true. It's made by River Horse Games.
There's a role playing now. How do you know this? Do you play this? Is this your secret other? Should we move that into the worlds? Let's go into the worlds. Dan, how is your gaming group going with the My Little Pony role playing?
Well, it's difficult to track down some of the rarer miniatures for you. And also last week we had a bit of a disaster where one of us got the tail hair tangled. But other than that, very well.
If I join this group, can I be slept near? No?
No,
okay.
You've got to take it sensibly.
Oh, really? How can you possibly take My Little Pony role-playing game anything other than ridiculously? I'm sure there's someone out there who plays it.
So there we go, Alexander. You've successfully had us talk about My Little Pony and Glitterskaven. That's fantastic. So,
and no, I'm still not painting glitter goblins. It's not happening.
No, please. Moving back into the mortal realms.
Yeah, moving back into the mortal realms. Let's talk about goblins, because Dan, this is driving me mad. So if you go on the Games Workshop website, there are so many different names for these sub-armies that they seem to have created for the old Warhammer races. Orcs and goblins used to be one codex, or army book. And now there is Greenskins, Ironjaws, Gitmob Grots, Moonclan Grots, Spiderfang Grots, Troggoths. There's so many different ones. And it seems like they're going to release army books for all of them. Or is that... Because at the moment, how the hell are you supposed to create a coherent goblin or orc army without buying 4 or 5 battle tomes? Seems ridiculous.
Do you own Grand Alliance Destruction?
Not yet, no. But having got Grand Alliance Order, I don't see how that's going to help.
So,
other than to just create a big mishmash army using those lists.
So that was the start of getting what people had before. So they had everything at their fingertips. But really, the key things you need is the General's Handbook and the Warhammer Age of Sigmar app, where all of the war scrolls are available for free. Because what you get is a Destruction Alliance, which covers everything within the sort of the orcs side of things. And that alliance will have Destruction Alliance abilities, Destruction Alliance upgrades or magical items, whatever you want to call them. Now, when General's Handbook 2 comes out, what they've said is that it's going to become a much bigger section. So there's going to be more abilities, more stuff akin to the most recent battle tomes that have been coming out. So you'll get a load of stuff in there. So that allows you to build a list of anything greenskin that you want, like you've just said. So you don't have to have you don't have to have every battle tome, because up to now the battle scrolls have existed for free, and there seems to be no sign that that's going to go away at the moment. What you would need is the General's Handbook, which will give you the Grand Alliance abilities, and then all those war scrolls. It's only when you want to make a more specific allegiance, so for example Iron Jaws, the specific Iron Jaws allegiance abilities would be in the battle tome, but you can't use those abilities in a generalized destruction. Everything would have to have the Iron Jaws keyword for it to be an Iron Jaws allegiance.
Okay.
So you don't need all the battle tomes. Not if you want to do one big collection of lots of different things.
Yeah.
It gives you a lot of freedom.
It does, yeah, but at the same time, if you're a collector, and you've got all of these things, I've got a fair few goblins and a fair few orcs. You kind of want to have those army books, to battle tomes, to find out what their background is, because I'm in a new place now. The Mortal Realms are a pure fantasy sandbox, where anything gets made up if it tickles your fancy. So actually, those battle tomes are what gives you the concrete background.
Yeah, but now you're talking about something different. So initially we were talking about, what do you need to play the game?
Yes, true. Yeah, I have moved.
And now you're talking about what you need to look at the background. So yeah, I completely agree. And to be honest, I was collecting all of the literature for Age of Sigmar until it got a little bit crazy with the battle tomes, because you just got to the point you just can't afford. I think the Archeon one, which was £35, and then the Bone Splitters one was £25, and they're lovely, but it just got... I mean, obviously, because Age of Sigmar was so fresh, they needed to fill up a big gap very quickly, so you saw stuff just come pouring out, and I couldn't keep up with it in the end.
But they were talking about cheaper codexes for 40k.
Yeah, gamers codexes as such, I think.
Gamers codexes, yeah. Which cheaper codexes for me is 15 quid.
Yeah.
Not 25 quid, not 35 quid.
No.
15 quid. 15 quid. Hopefully hardback, but not necessarily. But I mean, you're right. You can't get that many battle tomes, really. I mean, it's ridiculous. And
well, you have to just make a decision, don't you? What you want. It'd be interesting to see whether, because one thing that's really cool about Age of Sigmar, obviously, is that all of the war scrolls are free.
Yeah.
And it's only when you want to sort of build a bit more detail in that you have to start paying for any rules. So it'd be interesting to see if that. Not that I want to turn the Mortal Realms section all about 40k, but it'd be interesting if we see something similar.
Yeah, no, it will, I suppose. I don't understand, for me, why this broken down the orcs into so many subgroups. That's the thing that confuses me, and it's the same with the elves, really. There's so many subgroups. But then
to go back to Alexander's point, I think it opens up the opportunity to do a lot more different things, and excite people that like, greenskins on a more regular basis. So when it was just orcs, they would come around every 4 or 5 years. But now you've got you'll have Bone Splitters, and you'll have your Forest Goblins, and you've got your Iron Jaws. I just love the variety that's added in by having all of those different factions.
Yeah, but I mean, perhaps, to be honest, I'm kind of hoping they don't do that with the elves. I know it might sound ridiculous, but I don't want 5 or 6 different books for elves. I don't want 5 or 6 different books for greenskins. I want one. That maybe. I think maybe I've got a different perspective on it. But
why? Why wouldn't you want the variety?
Because it seems to me, let's take the Elven one for example. It seems to me that they've taken every specialist group, so the White Lions, the Phoenix Guard. etc., etc., and just given them their own kind of name and put them in a separate place on the website, which implies, maybe isn't definite, but it implies that they're going to have a book for each of those different groups. And that turns one High Elf Codex in, or say 3 Elf Codexes, the Wood Elf, High Elf, Dark Elf, into potentially 20, 30 codexes, or army books, battle tomes. And I think that just could get a bit much. I think that could get a bit much.
Well, that's probably because you just need to buy a bigger shed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what it comes down to. But because I like the background, I want to know where things come from. And when I'm making an elf army, when someone sits down and made a high elf army, and they said, "Oh, I want my high elves to be white lions with trace. I want it to be a Tracian army, and my high elf spearmen are going to be the militia from Trace, and my white lions are going to be there, and I'm going to have white lion chariots." That's because you've read the background about white lions in the elf book.
I understand what you're saying about having it getting a bit much, but it's not massively different to how it was, but now there'll be more support for it. So the example you've just given, people would make an army of white lions, or an army based on the sword masters, or an army from Lothran, which is what I had.
But how do they find out that they like them?
Well, because
in the elf book, all the background is there.
But between the internet and the core rule books, all right, there's not a great deal on elves at the moment, but I'm sure there will moving forward. There'll always be a central point with some little information about it, and then you decide, right, I'd like to delve deeper, and actually you get a lot more. Whereas instead of having like a couple of paragraphs on Lothran, for example, you'd have a whole book.
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from. I do get it. I just think, for me, I'm tentative because the thing that put me off 40k 7th edition was the endless stream of army books. And I was an army book collector. I've got virtually all of them for 6th edition. And I got a lot of them for 5th edition. And for me, that was easy when it was 15 quid a codex, because especially as a staff member, that's £7.50, and that's that's not much at all. But when they start becoming 20, 25, 30 quid, and they're hardback books, I just think it's.
I love them in hardback. I think it can be
I do. No, I agree. But at the same time, if you're that way inclined, and you're trying to find out everything about the mortal realms, then you'll end up going away from those books and getting all of your information from Lexicanum or something. Which isn't, somebody has written that and it's their take on it, or D4 channel, whatever it is. But I don't know. It's exciting, and it's in one half, and in the other half, it's frustrating, especially as as gamers, as Warhammer collectors, we are collectors, and there is an instinct to buy the books when they come out. And I can't lie that I'm not looking at the 40k Codex releases and going, I want them all.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I'm going to probably just get the Space Marine one, because I know I'm not going to be able to spend potentially £120 on round 1 and £120 on round 2 and £120 on round 3 without having some form of castration and a divorce. And it's the same with the army books, but I'm fine. I suppose coming into it, having not been in it, having not walked the journey with Age of Sigmar, coming into goblins or to greenskins, let's call them greenskins because that's probably more all-encompassing, and getting my collection out, I'm a little bit. It's been a little bit difficult to find a way of doing that. And understanding what it is I'm doing. But army list-wise, yeah, I get it. But background-wise...
Yeah, but I think... So part of that as well is there isn't... You're still looking at bits where they've shoehorned it. So they've kind of gone, right, well, people have got these models. We don't want to release a new realm where they can't use these models. So they've come up with something. But those are hangovers from the old world, really.
Yeah.
And so there isn't a lot out there about what night goblins are like in the mortal realms. And there may never be, that just might never happen, because they might go, well, actually, we want to do goblins a different way or different take on them. We don't know, and it's going to be a long time before all of it comes to fruition, because there's a lot to explore, a lot.
Yeah, which brings us back to make up anything if it tickles your fancy.
Well, yeah, and I think, as from an IP perspective and a designer's perspective, Alexander's not wrong. That is probably one of the big drivers, because the mortal realms is not constrained in any of the ways that the old world potentially was.
No, and it gives, I suppose, looking at it, half the problem I'm having is I've picked up those goblins and I'm painting them and thinking about them in the same way as I thought about them when I was trying to sell people Skull Pass. And I'm not thinking about them other than I put them on round bases this is for Age of Sigmar, this is for the mortal realms. They're going to go into the realm of beasts or what have you, and they're going to live in the forests, and they're going to be beast hunters or whatever, I'm not thinking like that yet, I guess, and it makes it really difficult to, and I think shoehorn is the right way to describe it, to shoehorn your army into the mortal realms. Because it's one thing to say, I can play a game of Age of Sigmar rule set using my old army, which you can, no problem. But how does my high elf, greenskin, dwarf, empire army fit into the mortal realms? And that, I suppose, is how, in a way, Games Workshop have encouraged you to go, right, well, sod this, start a new army, how does it work? And in doing that, you come up with those amazing armies like Duncan's sort of Greek-esque
they're really nice
spearmen, which are just completely outside the box, and no one would have ever done that in the Warhammer world, because they didn't exist. That concept didn't exist, that style of a human didn't exist, and now they do, now they can, and I suppose that's a good thing. But when you're trying to paint up all your old models and fit them into Age of Sigmar army, there's a teething issue.
Yeah,
if you see what I mean.
I do.
Especially for someone like me who found the whole process difficult to begin with. Kind of brings back all of those. Yeah, but I want the goblins to be attacking the dwarves in their holds, perhaps. But there we go.
The goblins can still attack the dwarves in their holds. They might just meet an awful lot of fire and have to look to the skies.
My goblins are attack. Yeah. Oh, what'd you do? I'm going to fire the fanatics at the flying dwarf ships.
I'm sure they'd work it out. They'd probably launch them off a squig or something.
Yes. Yeah, it's good to see squigs have still been kept in, but fanatics, I haven't seen them.
Yeah, there are still rules for fanatics.
But it's exciting. I've chosen orcs and goblins because I couldn't bring myself to paint chaos yet, and and I've actually had a little bit of a meltdown spending 3 weeks painting one squad of space wolves. If I painted my elves, which I know I'd spend as much time trying to get right, I think I wouldn't get an Age of Sigmar army for too long, which is why I've gone for my greenskins.
And you played some Age of Sigmar recently, didn't you?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I played my first game. So it was just the starters box set. Playing a starters box set battle using the models and the rules and the story thing, and it was great. Really enjoyed it, and just picked it straight up. And
did you play as the heroic chaos?
No, I didn't. I played as the heroic Stormcast. So, no, I couldn't bring myself to quite yet to go with the chaos.
Your time will come.
But yeah, no, I know it will. I was going through trying to find some models for my goblins, going through my Chaos box sets. Just bits and bobs that I've picked up over the years, and there's a couple of models in there which I'm quite excited about painting up. Harry the Hammer. Do you remember Harry the Hammer?
Yes.
Yeah, really excited about painting him.
Yeah, what, the newer one or the original?
No, Harry the Hammer. Was it first an anniversary model, wasn't it?
I know who you mean, but he was based on that model that was on the front cover, wasn't he, of the original?
Oh, yes, he was. Yeah, no, not that one. No, the really don't one. Don't have any of the old school Chaos. So you wanted to talk about, after finishing my rant, I've thrown my toys out.
I think you were very constrained. It wasn't much of a rant, was it? But it's an understandable frustration, but I think in time will heal all wounds. And I think that's what it needs. It's just a time for a bit more delving. I mean, your favourite thing in fantasy, or the thing you've always spoken to me a lot about, is elves. And at the moment, there's not been, apart from in Silver Tower, there's not been an elf model. We don't know what the elves look like in Immortal Realms. And there's every chance that the first time that they bring out some elves in Immortal Realms, you won't like them. But the great thing is, there's loads more opportunities for more elves.
Yes.
So, and that's what I find exciting. But yes, I did want to talk a bit about Path to Glory. That's just gone up on pre-order today.
So tell me about it, because I don't know a great deal about it, and you seem super excited about it.
Yeah, so Path to Glory is another way of collecting, really. It's based on an old series that was in White Dwarf, that was like Chaos Warbands, it started as. So you rolled on some tables and you had like your leader and he had a couple of followers, and then you played a game and you earned renown, and then you rolled and a few more people joined you, and so on and so forth. And they've done it for 40k in the past a little bit, and it's been floating around unofficially for a while, or as downloads and PDFs, but they've actually and actually it was mentioned it's in the first General's Handbook, although it's not going to be in the second because they've done it as a separate thing. But essentially, you are your general or your leader or your hero, and a warband gathers around you, and the more you fight and the more renown you get, the larger your warband becomes. So it's a bit like a gaming-led Tale of Many Gamers, I suppose, in many ways.
Yeah, because you could paint your units as you.
That's right. Yeah. So it's exciting because alongside the start collecting box sets and the skirmish, it's another way of leading you in to playing games, and you don't need. So I painted up sort of 3,500 points of Stormcast as quick as I could because I wanted to play Age of Sigmar, the main game, but with skirmish, so I was talking about doing death last time I think we spoke. I've mentioned it.
Yeah, you were.
I can go, right, well, I'm going to start with skirmish, so I'm going to have a necromancer and a bunch of skeletons. Right, well, now I want to do something a bit bigger, so I'm going to look at the Path to Glory and roll up a couple of units. So you add a couple of units, and then gradually it grows and grows and grows, and I think there's going to be a campaign in the book as well. So it's just taking you through that kind of... It's making collecting and painting into a journey rather than a chore to get to a destination. What is it that... There's always that saying, isn't there, is life is about the journey and not the destination. And it's a bit like that,
I think,
really.
We should put that quote up on Games Workshop, because that's gold dust down. That's beautiful. It's almost poetic.
Well, you see it on plaques, don't you? Every time you go into one of them shops when you're on holiday, that's got all the kind of the shabby chic stuff that your wife just wants to fill the house with, and you're like, no, I need more toy soldiers.
The word is tat.
Tat. But some tat has cool quotes on it. But yes, I have. I think I've had an epiphany, Ben. I've had a moment. I have realised that the new way of looking at skirmish and the Path to Glory, it is about the journey. Hobby is about the journey.
Well, yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah. I think
people are listening and going, yeah. That's not epiphany, you idiot.
But in some ways it is, because when this is new, this kind of way of doing things is new, and that's I think that's an important thing to say, because
how often,
Warhammer,
right? So think about it with your goblins. You're going to paint 52 goblins, right? So back in the old world, let's be honest, a unit of 50 goblins in 8th edition Warhammer was one of, you would need several of those and multiple other units.
Cannon fodder.
And this is the whole thing that, one of the big changes that Age of Sigmar was about was getting away from this. Well, you need to have mountains of models, because you'd be painting for years before you really started playing, and playing is such a big motivator. And actually, when Age of Sigmar came out, and it was like, you can just use 5 dudes and a hero, and yes, that was true. The mechanics allowed you to, but it wasn't much fun. Not in comparison to playing a big game. And now with Skirmish and Path to Glory, actually, you can use a small number of models, and you can still have loads of fun. And they're doing something for it. It's fantastic, and it's brilliant. And it's made me want to. Thing is, I do want to expand my corn for Age of Sigmar.
Oh, do you really? I mean, I can't imagine.
Well, yeah, but there's some cool mechanics. There is some cool mechanics for corn, and like, it's your hero phase. Oh my god, I'm killing you in your own hero phase. That happens. But equally I want to explore death. I love Iron Jaw. You can just pop in, grab a start collecting, paint it up, play some skirmish.
The Iron Jaw start collecting box is amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're all amazing. Have you noticed? I nearly fell. I was lying on the bed when I got home from work, reading through my iPad, just chilling, and I nearly fell off the bloody bed because I was reading I was looking at the new start collectings. Now, the Magma Droff used to be £65. Okay? So, in the new start collecting, you get a Magma Droff and a unit of Volkite Berserkers, who used to be £30. So that's £95 worth of product, used to be, in a £50 box. And the Magma Droffs come down by 15 quid. Down! Like when stuff gets cheaper.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very
I think there's a glitch. It must be a glitch.
The Matrix is broken.
I can imagine some, like, the pricing guys at GW just sitting there twitching. Like, they've stuck in a loop. They don't understand what's happening. So, and it's, I'm sure it's a reaction because the slightly, like, limited range, when you're on the internet, you only see a small amount of opinion, don't you? But the general opinion on Fire Slayers was overpointed, overpriced, and you don't see them as much. And it seems to be a reaction to that, but it's just great. Yeah.
I mean, it's true. It's great, and those starters box sets are good. They've always been good in Games Workshop. They've always been the kind of the deal, the discount. But when you're getting 100 quid's worth of models almost for 50 quid, it's pretty cool. I mean, the Iron Jaws ones, you get a 20 quid character, 30 quid unit, and a 50 quid ball rider unit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But going back to, the ways of playing, the ways of collecting, I remember when we were staff members, Dan. I mean, how did you feel about running the fantasy beginners day?
Mate, it was always a bit toss, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
I mean, you never got past the first round.
Yeah, and
it was always a complete catastrophe. No one was paying any attention. No. It was like herding cats with a shotgun. It was appalling.
But why would you as well? So the problem was, you're buying into a fantasy setting which has,
and you needed a massive army to play it,
and having 10 guys. It was. I had some great games of Warhammer Fantasy in the editions I played, and I had some really, really shit games as well because of the restrictions. And there will be people that disagree. And to be honest, if they disagree, if they've got this far and they disagree with me, they've done very well, because I'm quite passionate about Age of Sigmar. But I can categorically say that I enjoy Age of Sigmar a huge amount more than Warhammer. And I enjoyed Warhammer Fantasy, don't get me wrong. Like, I loved playing with my elf army in 8th edition, but Age of Sigmar is just a fantastic experience. And yeah, from that point of view, Ben, for getting people into the hobby, keeping the hobby alive, is so much better. So much better.
The thing I liked about it, playing it for the first time, was the battle flow. I mean, this is going to sound weird, but the other war game that I do is reenactment. And when you fight in a shield wall in reenactment, you can see the battle flow. So a unit doesn't stay as a coherent unit very easily. It takes an awful lot of training, and it takes a good leader to keep you in line, to tell you to close the gap, that there's a space opening up on the left. Those kind of small things, and you need to shout that above the din of being in a simulated environment. When you play Warhammer Fantasy, you stuck 2 blocks next to each other. There was no flow. They just stood there and beat the shit out of each other until one of them died, and then it ran away, and then you ran them down, and then you'd made a massive hole in the army, and you were facing completely the wrong direction. And quite often, tactically, you could go, "Oh yeah, but that's how." Those tactics were really important, and yes, they were, but they didn't feel real to me.
No.
Whereas Age of Sigmar, I made a battle line, and it flowed. It felt like if I started to lose guys in that battle line, I could plug them in with reinforcements, or it felt like an actual, real shield wall, and how a shield wall functioned or functions. At least in reenactment, which I appreciate is a simulation. But it felt more tactical in a way, because it felt like you could make smaller decisions as to where to reinforce your line in an actual way that could make a difference, rather than watching a unit break and having no real way of stopping that.
Mm.
Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed that mechanic, and
and it's interesting because
games.
I've spoken to people who felt, because the manoeuvring in Warhammer Fantasy, obviously, you had to be very
was a ball ache,
precise, shall we say? But I actually find in Age of Sigmar, I don't find myself arguing over anything really, but like little tiny angles and all that. But I still get a lot out of positioning models and making sure you're in that range.
Yeah.
It still has that tactical depth. If that's what you enjoy.
Yeah, definitely.
I think. You can see from what they're doing with Warhammer 40,000 now with the magazine. They just, and we've said this in the other episodes. It's just so great, so fantastic to see the studio. Central Games Workshop supporting recruitment of new or re-engagement of lapsed hobbyists.
Just sort your background out for Age of Sigmar, you kids. Before I pull my hair out. And if I don't see an elf before the end of the year, then shit is going to go down.
I would be in the car on the way to Warhammer World, banging on the door.
I'm not joking.
That's where the pod's going.
I'll tear that Age of Sigmar statue down and drag it through Nottingham.
Right. And on that fantastically positive note, I think it's time. It's time to move on from the mortal realms. We're almost at the destination, guys. We've almost reached the planet's surface, and got to get out there and start slaying us some heretics or what have you. So we're going to move into the wilds. Ben's going to talk a little bit about game that he played at his local gaming club. So as ever, grab some refreshment, wake up if you're falling asleep there, and we'll catch you when we come back. Thanks, guys. Welcome back then, guys. Those that are still with us, congratulations.
There's no prize.
You've survived. Pardon?
There's no prize for still being with us.
No, there is no prize. And those that aren't with us, well, there's not really a lot of point talking to you because you're not listening. Moving on. So we're going into the wilds now, guys. Ben has had the chance to play a new game.
I have.
At a local gaming club, and he wants to have a chat about that. I'm quite interested to hear because I've not heard anything about it yet. I've just seen a few pictures. And then we will wrap up towards the end of the session with a little bit of a heads up of when we're joining you again. So Ben, say about Outlander then. How did you get on with that?
Yeah, so Outlander's written by two of the guys who set up the club that I'm going to locally in Bodmin, John Moyes and Ross Barrowall. And it was a game that they set up for, originally was played off the cuff to get someone into wargaming who'd had a pretty bad experience getting into wargaming because he was playing someone at War Machine who just trashed him into the floor every time he played him. I think we've all kind of know people who've had that sort of experience and thought, sod this, I'm not interested if it's like this. So they wrote a set of rules, or made it up as they went along, and then refined it into a game called Outlander, which is, and I'm going to get some of this wrong, so guys, if I do, I'm really sorry. It's set in a world called Paradise, which has basically gone to shit. It's got an apocalyptic feel to it, and essentially the point of the game is it's a bit like Necromunda in that you're building a gang of guys or girls, and as you play games they get better, and it's a kind of a campaign-based game where in each game the point is to collect this spice stuff, and you can use that to sell or upgrade yourself or your weapons. And the mechanic is really easy. So each person has a kind of action points that they start the turn with, and if you have the initiative in the turn, then you're the one who gets to call all the shots. But every time you fail an action, your opponent gets a chance to sort of generate an action as a responding player in your turn. So they can respond to what you're doing. So if you're rolling really badly and failing to do stuff, they can take pot shots at you, and essentially the more of that you do, the more chance you have of gaining the initiative in the next turn. So it's quite a simple mechanic. It worked really well, I thought, actually, and it was a really easy to pick up and fun game to play. And
so that sort of response mechanic, I think Infinity uses something like that.
Do they? I've never played Infinity.
Yeah. No, I've only played it once, but it's quite interesting. It's different, which I think is nice.
Yeah, it is, and it can leave you. It changes the way you play the game completely, because you could quite easily be the responding player for a couple of turns, so you're less likely to do risky things, because you know that you could have a guy left in the open for 2 turns getting the shot at, and equally in your turn, if you're doing risky manoeuvres and failing, your opponent's got a chance to do stuff, and I quite enjoyed it. And the whole point of it really is to have a really low entry point, so you can only ever have 5 people in your gang, and they can be any models. So you can use 5 Space Marines if you wanted to. They're not picky. Of course, if you're a modeler, then you're going to run with the apocalyptic theme and create a gang of, with quite a lot of modelling opportunities.
So is the rulebook? Is it a printed rulebook, or is it...
Yeah, they do. They've actually got a printed rulebook that I bought a copy of, or you can get it as a PDF for cheaper. Yeah.
Where do you get that from then? Have they got a site?
They have, and I'll link that on when we post this at the bottom. But they've already kind of thrown that about when I've mentioned the game before, and get in contact and they'll send you a PDF of the rules.
So how long did your game take?
It took about an hour and a half, but it was getting used to the mechanics. It didn't take me any longer to learn than anything else, and I suppose it took a little bit longer because actually it's totally different from anything that I've ever played before. So, it was quite good, really nice and simple. So I was really quite impressed with it, and they've clearly put a lot of time and thought and love into it. They had scenery that they'd made themselves specifically for it, among other things. So it was nice, and it was nice to be shown a game by people who'd written it. And when they said they'd made it, I thought that they'd kind of scribbled down some rules and created a PDF, and I hadn't for 1 second thought that they'd got a hard copy of the rulebook printed in a really nice kind of. It's not a bad publication at all. It's nice being taught a game by someone who's written the rules, so they can explain why they've made that decision to have the game mechanic like that. And that was quite a nice experience in its own right. And actually, in a little way, it kind of made me think, oh, I'd quite like to write a set of my own rules. But that's probably for another day. I've always tinkered with playing, writing a set of role-playing rules, actually. But I find myself getting stuck in realism.
Trouble is, though, it's been done, hasn't it? We've already established that there's a My Little Pony roleplay.
Yes.
So,
and where do you go after
you've
that?
been trumped there.
I mean, how do you go forward?
I think potentially, I have been getting quite into In the Night Garden.
Oh.
So I'm sure.
No.
I'm sure there's some role-playing opportunities there.
No.
Come on, you can travel between the realms in the Dinky Nonk. It'll be or the Pinky Plonk. Or...
No.
You know. And to be quite honest, any encounter with Makka Pakka is just going to be fantastic.
No, and the Night Garden is like a
just for the listeners. I have to do Makka Pakka. Woo!
You did not do Makka Pakka on our podcast.
I did. Are you going to
edit
it
you
out?
need to go and sit in the corner. Go sit in the corner.
It's quite late, mind.
Go and get Josh to finish off this podcast. He's much more mature.
Oh dear, I know. I'm holding myself back. Makka Pakka's fantastic.
It's not. No.
Come on, quick. Back to wargaming.
I'm completely lost now.
So my non-Games Workshop game of the week is Carcassonne. I played Carcassonne this evening before we recorded with Harriet, and I won. Yes, 40 points up. No dice, which you'll know from the previous episodes. Is a caveat of Harriet and I gaming because I get too upset with
only
because
she beats you.
I can't cope. Yeah, yes, she does. 31 times at Catan.
Yeah.
Much to my
I
shame.
still haven't managed to get Jo to play a game yet, but she did come and do some painting. So
well, that's good. Harriet's actually asked for me that she'd like me to show her how to do some painting, so I need to do that.
This is important. I've got a lot of models to paint, and I figure if I can train Tristan up and Elowen and Jo, I can create a production line and just get them all painted.
That is
a
good
focus
idea,
on my Space Wolves.
Just be careful because you don't want the glitter models, glitter skaven.
Oh, my days. That could happen with Elowen, in fairness. In fact, that probably has happened. Did you see that bejangled pink rhino that was floating around the internet today?
Yes, I've seen that.
My eyes bled. God.
Yeah, different.
Oh, never mind. Anyway, so Outlander, go back to the games, was good. And what was your Carcassonne?
You must have heard of Carcassonne.
I haven't heard of Carcassonne, and you brought it up right after you dropped the In the Night Garden bombshell, so I was still a little bit...
You were reeling. So Carcassonne is a tiles-based game where you got a whole bunch of tiles that you can't... that are upside down, and when you turn them over on there's like roads or cities, bits and pieces, and you put them together to make longer roads and bigger cities, and then score points by controlling them with your meeples.
Oh, I see.
It's a really simple mechanic, lots of cool expansions. Harriet and I enjoy it. There's no dice, which is good. Yeah, it's great. Although frustratingly, expansion number 2, I think, is currently, you just can't find it anywhere, or it's like £100, and it's normally like a retail price of 15. It's very annoying.
Maybe their production's broken.
And there is an expansion which we don't have that I need to get, which is the Dragon and the Princess. But I've had to hold off because although Harriet likes the idea of the Princess, she's not so keen on the the rules mechanic for the dragon where he gobbles up the meeples. so yeah, that's not so popular.
Talking about things that
it's a great game.
Have become super overpriced. I missed the boat with. I was told you that they weren't making the APC for the drop ship for Prodos.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have been talking about this. A company called, I think it's called Cinecast or something like that. They make die-cast models of film stuff, and how that one fitted perfectly inside the dropship. And I've been putting off buying it because I didn't have the 30-40 quid to splash, and it's now gone up to £120 on Amazon. So I think it might have gone out of production, and I am just shooting myself about that. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So if anyone finds one of those on eBay for like 30 quid, I'll be happy to drop me a link, because, or if anyone's really keen, find a version of an APC that will fit in a Prodos dropship and let me know about it, because I need one in my life.
Right, well, that was an interesting visit to the wilds. As Ben said, he'll stick up a link, guys, so if you are interested in trying something different, it's quite a low buy-in. Have a look. I'm going to check it out, see what it is that Ben's been enjoying. Play a bit of Outlander. So, Ben, I think the drop pod has almost arrived, mate. I can practically see the whites of their eyes, as it were. So it's been great to chat to you, mate. Thank you guys for listening. I really was going to say it at the start, but just want to reiterate, Ben and I have been blown away. We decided to do this just because we didn't get to chat very often, and we wanted to chat a bit more.
That's essentially what it was.
And yeah, and that was it. We cover it in the intro, but that's what it was about. To see that the page likes is up to, I think it's about 87 now, and that there's been 114 downloads, which is quite a few mental people that want to listen to us or decided to give it a try anyway. We'll probably find there's about 3 that come back for more, but it has been really fantastic, really, really good. So keep posting, please. Keep letting people know. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining us. The next one's a bit special. Ben and I are hoping to get together for the next one, because you may not know, we record in 2 different areas and put it together. So we're hoping to get together 2 weeks' time, do another one, chat about some more crazy stuff, probably less in the Night Gardens impressions on this one.
No more.
But maybe a little bit more about My Little Pony roleplay.
I'm actually going to dig that out now.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to go.
What? You're going to pick it up? Yeah, good. I'm glad. It's the LARP version you want to really get into.
No, on that bombshell.
Right, come on that bombshell. Good night, guys. Thank you very much for listening.